So here we are. We continue this conversation. We have a situation where people have been dealing with unforgiveness. They go to their pastors, they go to their counselors, but between the pastors and the counselors, we may have two different type of approach. Maybe for the counselor, they will treat it as a situation that needs to be addressed from a place of validating how that person feel, looking at cognitive behavior skills, looking at things that could be changed, that needs to be changed, right? Whereas you go to your pastor and your pastor may have a completely different approach. A remedy that might take the word of God into consideration, which is always a good thing, but the context is important. So, Ingrid, as we continue to wrap up this series, talking about our pain having purpose, one of the pain that we continue to have conflict with is recognizing that when you're hurting, you want to be validated and that it's not being spiritualized. How do we deal with issues? Have you had situations like that for whether yourselves or somebody that you may care about that have gone through the issues of unforgiveness and inner healing and they've had that approach either from a counseling, a professional counseling approach, and from a pastoral place? And can the two find some type of merging and balance?
Hmm.
What do you think about
Wow, that's
that?
a good question. I believe that I have experienced that from a pastoral perspective, not for myself, but just seeing it happen or play out,
Mm-hmm.
where people that I've known have gone to the pastor for prayer, and it entailed deliverance,
Mm-hmm.
and that, you know, things were said that maybe this was something they did why they're going through situation.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you're saying is they go to the pastor
Mm-hmm.
for prayer
Right.
regarding this issue of
Exactly.
forgiveness or unforgiveness,
Yes.
but it's treated more like a deliverance situation where that person is faulted or questioned for possibly doing something that contributed to this spirit in terms of possession. Is that what you're saying?
No. So persons went to a church. Um, the pastor looked at them and felt that maybe it was because whatever they were going through was based on their sickness
Okay.
was based on something that they probably did wrong,
Oh, so it's tied to that.
tied to it.
Okay.
And then sometimes it could be tied to forgiveness, but sometimes not necessarily so.
Right.
Sometimes it could be that the person is sick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe they haven't taken care of their body, maybe they neglected themselves in some way. Maybe they don't have money to take care of themselves, and so they fell into situations. So now they're sick. So the pastor or people are saying, well, it could be because of their lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
why they're sick.
Right.
Maybe they're being punished by
Mm-hmm.
the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I see, and I've heard that along the lines, and I think this is where we want to have that conversation.
Right.
So we're continuing to look at and to all areas
Right.
because we're not right in everything. We don't know. We're not
Exactly.
experts. But
Yeah.
what we are saying is lived experiences tends to be something that we want to look at. Why is it that people have this commonality where you're hurting and you go to a pastor and you have a completely different approach from if you go to a professional counselor? But you do have some counselors that are pastors,
Right.
and maybe they do bring the two together because sometimes it could be, like you're saying, it might be related to their health, it might not be, but because most of the times we sometimes spiritualize illnesses and place it in a category where the person most likely is being seen or recommended for what we call deliverance,
Right.
deliverance from the spirit of forgiveness or unforgiveness. So what I'm saying here is, what has been your observation in that? And if you don't have that observation, that's fine. We still have to look at what our readers or our listeners or people who have been following along this journey that has shared with us their lived experiences.
Okay. So for me, I even for myself, I
Hmm.
have found myself saying the same thing,
Which
where
is
which is that maybe it's because of something that they did,
okay.
right?
So you have found yourself to
I
be
have found myself
judgmental. Can I say
judgmental.
that?
Absolutely.
Okay, I
Right.
want us to really call things by the
Yes.
emotions we're feeling.
Yes.
So you're saying that you
Yes.
have been in a position where
I've thought
you,
it.
yeah,
I thought it.
you
Yeah.
thought it and you
Yeah.
saw that as a flaw in yourself, or have you seen reasons to justify that?
Well, there were times when I see that as a flaw because I realize that not everything is spiritualized,
Mm-hmm.
but then also because of person's lifestyle and the things that I've seen and they don't want to change, then I
Mm.
say, okay, there's a connection here.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not always right though because we're not God and we can't judge people and we should
We
not be
shouldn't.
judging people.
Mm-hmm. We
Yes,
shouldn't be.
so um, that's something that I'm changing about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. I don't want to be that person that I right away come to that conclusion that it could be this when
Mm-hmm.
it has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I find that a lot of deliverance pastors, a lot of preachers, this is what they do.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something that they need to take a look at,
Mm-hmm.
unless the Lord is really speaking to them. But I don't know. I can only speak for myself.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true, and that's fair, and I applaud you
Yeah.
for affirming that that is something that you don't want to continue in. And I can say that for myself, I've had situations too where I'm questioning and I'm saying to myself, like, if you see somebody that is struggling with the spirit, whether it is unforgiveness, but in this context, we're talking about that, right? But you do have other issues of brokenness within a person's family
Right.
or life.
Right.
They come to the Lord and they're saying, I need this thing to be fixed. I need to be healed.
Right.
Heal me, Lord, and I will be healed. So you're now going to go to the person that best represents that. And in most cases, it's a pastoral figure,
Awesome. Right.
right?
Right.
And so when the person comes and they keep coming back though, week after week, and you're saying to yourself,
Wow.
wow,
What's going on?
what's going on? If this person is truly wanting to be healed, truly wanting to be delivered, and you have a pastoral position or an anointing where you are praying for that person to be delivered, the question is, how much deliverance do they need? And at that point in time, what are you left to think? And if you're wondering, if people are looking on and wondering, is a problem with the person who is carrying out the deliverance or the person who is needing the deliverance?
Wow. It could actually be both. It could be the person that's carrying out the deliverance that they're really not hearing from God and they're being judgmental. It could be the person who is being delivered that they really do have something going on, other than an unforgiveness issue. Maybe there's
Mm-hmm.
something that they need to, something else that needs to be addressed. Like when Jesus was on the earth, when he healed the people, he didn't just heal them. Some of them they were hungry. So he took care of the personal needs first. And then
Mm-hmm.
as he took care of that, then he addressed the other issues. So, when people come into a church and they are having issues, we have to remember that these people are wounded soldiers. They're
Mm.
coming into a hospital. So when they come into the hospital, as pastors, as leaders, we're supposed to have the discernment to understand what is it this person needs. Do they
Mm-hmm.
need a job? Do they need a place to stay? Do they need a hug?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they just need to be told, I love you. They
Mm-hmm.
need to be affirmed. So
Mm-hmm.
what is it that they need and how can we address it?
Without projecting,
Without projecting.
without assuming.
A
Mm-hmm.
judgmental attitude. So
Yeah.
it could be a lot of different things, but this is why it's so important that you have the spirit of discernment. And
Mm-hmm.
discernment at this time is so important because by missing the mark, you could endanger that person.
Spiritually, absolutely. And
Absolutely.
I am so with you on that, because I see that a lot of times we are giving people's permission to speak into situation that might not even be a spiritual issue,
Correct.
and that can complicate the issue both for the unbeliever, the person who is looking on, for the person who needs to mature in their walk with the Lord. And of course, God does take those things seriously,
Right.
because if you're being presumptuous and you're not taking in account that this person might just really just need professional counseling, not necessarily a deliverance situation. So let's back up and talk about, when do we and how do we know the difference when someone truly needs prayer, fasting, deliverance versus practical counseling, when they really just need to speak with and the person that can best help them to walk through and validate how they feel, for those feelings to be appropriately owned, addressed, taken care of. And we realize that if that's taken care of in the appropriate way and time, then it's very possible that there would be no need for deliverance, because that person would have taken care of what was really the true problem,
Right.
right?
Right.
So I've seen it as well, where persons have shamed the victim
Wow.
into feeling that because they feel a particular way and they are coming back to that place of woundedness and hurt, and they have not been delivered, then they would be like, well, maybe it's something that you're doing wrong.
Talk about that.
Well, I've just said for myself, I've noticed it, and I observe it from a distance, not always addressing it immediately, because I think timing is important. I think context is important.
Right.
And I think sometimes, like again, you don't want to interfere, not really knowing the full nature of the situation. But it has been brought to my attention in some situations where professionally the person is really trying to address an emotional need, but it becomes spiritualized. And when they speak upon the issue, they're basically being bullied into accepting a version that is not altogether true. And it's not that it cannot become a spiritual issue. Get this. Because unresolved issue can lead to that space where you're so consumed with that hurt and pain that the stronghold becomes stronger, and then you truly need deliverance.
Right.
But there are times when, if it's handled correctly, it will not need deliverance. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So the healing for the blind man could be that God would say, be healed, and his
Right.
faith made him whole.
Right.
There are times when he had to spit on the mud, wipe it on the man's eyes, and he had to walk through and do what he had to do on his end to complete the healing.
Right.
So it shows us that pretext and context can set us up for the appropriate action if the person truly needs inner healing, physical healing, spiritual healing, that would include deliverance.
Absolutely. So, from what you're saying, also, what I'm hearing is it's important when the pastor sees what's happening with persons that they know how much they can do for that person at some point,
Or shouldn't do.
or shouldn't do. Exactly. And at some point, they need to say, listen, I need to let you speak to so and so because I can't go no further here, and vice versa.
Yes.
As a counselor or a life coach, when you get to a certain point, you realize that this is something out of your sphere of influence or your
Expertise
expertise.
or giftedness.
Right. So you have to know when to let go. And I find that some people are greedy. You know, they want to
Greedy how? You mean
greedy.
for?
They want to keep, especially if that person is paying for sessions. They want to keep it going.
Yeah, I see what you
So
mean.
they want to hold on as
Yes.
long as they can. Not
So it's a
realize
codependency.
codependency.
Got
And
it.
so they don't realize the damage that they're doing because this person is paying for sessions, for meetings, and that nothing is happening. They're not getting true healing. Whether
Yes.
it's healing from the Spirit of God, or through deliverance, or through therapy.
And it could also be true then, if that's true for the professional, I wonder if you could dare say that it could also be true for the pastor.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Because sometimes these pastors, they like the recognition, they like the fact that the person keeps coming to them. They
Mm.
like the fact that the person is looking up to them, and
Mm-hmm.
so
The
the
flesh.
flesh,
Ah,
the
and
spirit of
that's
pride,
the spirit of pride
yeah,
and manipulation.
manipulation.
That is very unfortunate because I think that is kind of what we've been seeing and sensing in the body.
Yes.
And also, it seems like persons who are not even a part of the body is afraid of that because they see it. And sometimes they're the ones to call it out the most. Like
Absolutely.
something is wrong here. And
Yes.
they feel as though we're hypocrites if we don't say anything.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. This
Yeah.
is really a touchy topic. I
It
feel
is.
almost uncomfortable going there, but I feel like we need to. No, we need to.
Absolutely, and especially, and then sometimes, if counseling is not appropriated correctly, a pastor speaking to a woman, you know,
This is true.
you know,
Again,
and
context,
yeah,
gender to gender,
exactly.
inappropriations, and appropriate situations. I see that.
Sometimes that can go off keel.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off one way, but
And the codependency becomes a situation of question, one standing.
exactly,
Yeah. So it's a very
exactly,
layered situation.
very much so.
Yeah, like everything else.
Mhm.
Guys, I don't know if any one of you out there have gone through a situation where you have struggled with spiritual issues and they are genuinely spiritual issues that you need deliverance from.
Right.
But sometimes there are situations where you're just going through something emotional and it's something that needs to be addressed, right?
Yes.
By bringing the third party and sitting down. I believe the Bible talks about that. If you have something against a member of the church or the body, you come, you sit down, and you work it out.
Yeah.
That can be a
Two or three
spiritual,
others, yeah.
right? But that's an emotional thing where somebody's feelings or situation needs to be addressed, and it's done so from a practical standpoint.
Exactly.
Maybe it won't need deliverance.
Right.
But if you continue over a period of time where you are shamed, silenced, and stunted into accepting that as the norm, then we see where the spirit of manipulation, pride, and even narcissism comes into place, where the authority is saying, you don't dare question who I am because I carry an anointing and I am the person that God is using in this situation. But is that abuse of power?
I think so. I think so. We
Ah.
have to know when to turn off. We have to know when to stop and when to give it over to the person who is the professional in
Or
this
the
area.
right person
Yes,
with the
yes.
right motive. And
Exactly.
always we know that God can heal any one of us. We don't always have to come to the pastor or a leader. We could just go to God. We can say,
Absolutely.
Lord, heal me, save me, and He can do it. But we also know that because of the emphasis that we place on leaders in power, we have to realize that our pain, it has purpose, but that purpose should not be used against us. It is supposed to be used to bring healing to the body, and so that God can be given all the glory, because after a time when we keep going to the pastor or the counselor, they become our false
Yes,
refuge.
yes.
They become our God, and they get to glory in themselves, thinking that it is because of their works, their prayers, their this, their that, that you are where you're at. And God forbid that any man should glory and take the glory away from God.
It's a very dangerous place to be.
Very dangerous space
Yeah.
to be.
None of us want to be there.
None of us should be
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So I want to wrap it up a little. We're going to go in our last episode following this one, where we will tie it up and see what that looks like. But for right now, in this moment, having gone through and looking at the context and the importance of appropriately ministering to the body, ministering to the wounded, ministering to the pain of the people that are being trusted in your care, what are some of the things that you would like to invite or listeners or those that are traveling in this journey with you to remember? Any particular thing that comes to mind?
Hmm. To first of all, all of us go through issues.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go through issues, it's very, very important that we take it to God first. Take it to God first. Instead of taking it to a friend, instead of taking it to the pastor. A lot of us seem to forget that pastors are human
They're
beings.
human beings. And we love our
They
pastors, we
have
love our leaderships,
issues.
but they
Yes,
are struggling
they're also
too. They need
struggling.
prayers too.
Yes. So, where does it say in the word to go to the man of God or the woman of God first? We need to go to God first and
Yes.
listen and get direction and then go from there. So that's what I would like to say, because I have found in the past that I have done the very things that I'm telling you not to do. I have spoken to others first instead of going to the Lord. And you know where that got me? No place. Just going round and round in a circle.
Yeah.
So I am trying to change, and this is part of my journey. So that's what I would like for our viewers.
Very good and
Yeah.
sound advice. I thank you so much again. And I
You're
look
welcome.
forward to wrapping this up with you, because I feel like we're coming to the place where we've laid some ground rules,
Absolutely.
some understanding, and it's a good
Yes.
place to take us into the next season of our journey, both individually and collectively, as we work together and build up the body
Yeah.
of Yeshua
Right.
wherever that is and wherever God takes you. So
Right.
thank God for you.
Thank you.
So we're gonna say bye here, and we're gonna
What
ask
challenge are you going to leave them with,
the
DJ?
oh wow, yes, good one. So I think the challenge is to, I am agreeing with you that take it to the Lord first.
That could be the challenge.
Take it to the Lord first. See if when God tells you what it is that you need to do, and see if the person that you're going to trust your situation is going to be on the same page.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't make sense if God tells me something about my life and it's my life, and when I entrust it to whatever pastor, counselor, and it's going to be different. And it's not that it cannot be, but usually God is going to give you peace and clarity about that. And if it's an uneasiness that is not settled, then I think that you should use that as a red flag to say the
Absolutely.
motive might not be there for the right reasons.
That's very good.
So, until next time, we invite you guys to come back and check us out. And if you have anything that you would like to ask us or to share in your journey, oh man, we invite you to do so. Thank you again.
Definitely.
We'll see you the next
Bye.
time. Bye. Gotcha.
So what are we going to be talking about next? So
Wait. Where you there? Yeah, we're finished. Where you there?
Okay, I messed up it.